Hello, Stampin' Buddies. It's Lori from Lori's Little Bit of Crafting. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in the United States, and it's Late Night Lori coming to you again. It's actually a little after midnight on Friday morning, but I'm counting this as my Thursday video because it's still since I've been awake on Thursday morning. So I'm going to kind of do a little repeat of a card that I did yesterday. I think it was yesterday's card where I did a fun fold using the With You in Mind stamp set. I'm going to feature a couple of products that are in the celebration brochure. This is the biggest sale that Stampin' Up! Has. You've heard me mention it before if you've been watching my videos over the last couple of weeks. But this runs until February 28th. And even Stampin' Up! Says it's their biggest sale of the year. So we are going to use this stamp set that I got for free. We are going to use a sheet of Toadstool Gardens DSP that I got for free. I think that's all I'm going to do out of here tonight. But there's also a really sweet deal if you want to join my team. Stampin' Up! Usually offers a $99 set of products. You get $126 worth of product that you can pick yourself. It's not a predetermined kit, so you can pick whatever product you want. It costs $99. Free shipping. You get a paper pumpkin kit. You get, and it's not necessarily a current kit. It's usually a past kit. And you also get some business supplies if you're looking to start a business. But during celebration, they always sweeten the deal a little bit. So there's two options. Option one, in addition to the $126 worth of product, you get this stamp set, Handmade Designs. I featured this stamp in it a few videos ago. And you get to pick a color family of the Stampin' Write markers. Not the alcohol blends, but these are markers. So they come with 10 different colors in the color families. So it might be subtles or regals, brights, etc. If you don't like the stamp set, if you don't need any more markers, maybe you're all set with those. Option two is to add $30 in free product. So that would be like the basic one, but you're getting $155 worth of product for $99, the free shipping, etc. And this one, it's well over $200 worth of product that you get for that $99. Free shipping is a big deal. Some of the other benefits to being on my team, you get to see catalogs early. You get to pre-order certain items in limited quantities from the catalogs when they come in. You get advance notice of some of the things coming up. There's training that Stampin' Up! Offers, but you also get a discount, which is why I joined. I wanted the kit at the time. I considered myself a kitnapper, and I wanted the discount. All right. So you don't have to do videos. You don't have to be a hard sell. You can just join to get the stuff. And if you continue, there are some minimum requirements. Hobby demos, the majority of demonstrators, per se, demonstrators are hobby demonstrators, I would venture to guess. So that's that, my little commercial. So let's continue on. Last night I talked about the With You in Mind stamp set, how I loved the big, bold greetings, the sentiments. We're going to use this one today, and we're going to do What a Wonderful Day. And that's out of this set. So this is that free celebration item. And I didn't tell you how you earn those. For every $60 increment of product, you can select a free item. All right. So that's how I got that. And the other free product that I'm using is this Toadstool Gardens. And they list, anytime you see designer series paper from Stampin' Up, they always list what the colors are in the sheets. Now this one has early espresso, fresh freesia, granny apple green, melon mambo, poppy parade, and pumpkin pie. I am using this. It reminded me of a wood grain, but there's a lot of other designs, and I've kind of highlighted this a couple of times. You can see all the different toadstool designs. So you have 6 different sheet designs, but they're two-sided, all right? And then on the other side is all of the toadstool things that are cute and colorful. So you get 48 sheets. That's free if you order $60 worth of product. With this one sheet, this was the the mushrooms that I didn't care for those, but I liked the wood grain side. I actually ran it through an embossing folder, and I don't know if you can see that very well because my lighting as I get closer to the camera isn't very good. But I've mentioned before I like texture, and that just to me made it look a little bit more like wood. So this is that timber embossing folder. This is a 3D embossing folder. So if you've got the Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine, you will use just the base plate and that number 4 dark gray plate. So you will put the embossing folder with your paper, fold first in between those 2 plates and run it through your machine. If you look at your plates, it gives you what the recipe is basically to run that through. I've already run it through just to save time and, you know, not pulling out my big machine because this won't go through the little machine because it's more than 3 inches wide. All right, so keep that in mind as well. All right. I'm also going to use this happy birthday that I did with you in mind yesterday, and I'm going to use this star actually. And what I thought I would do is a little more masculine card from the one that I did yesterday. All right, so we'll put those things aside. This is the card I'm doing. I'll show you what I do for the envelope. I like to have dressed envelopes, never send out a naked envelope. So I put a couple of stars on the front to coordinate with the card and the designer series paper on the flap. I'll cover that too if I don't forget. All right. So this is the card. Again, this is the fun fold we did yesterday, but it's a little more masculine. And you'll see that I did a different technique with this day where it looks a little distressed, where if you stamp it straight on, you can get more solid letters. I wanted it to look a little more beachy, a little more, I don't know, casual, if you will. So I'll show you how I did that. And then if you get cards from me, frequently you will see this stamp on the back. Even if I'm just giving them out to people, I still put this on there. Stampin' Up! Has what they call an angel policy. So if you sell any of your cards, so even if you want to buy product and you want to make cards and you want to sell them, you know, maybe you're going to do a craft fair or something, you have to have this copyright stamp on there. Any of the images, fonts, texts, anything that Stampin' Up! Designs is their copyright, all right? And you have to disclose that. So that's why you'll see those on the back of there. If you're just doing cards on your own and you're just giving them out to family or whatever, you don't have to worry about that so much, but it's always nice to have something on the back, all right? So that's the card. So let's move these things a little bit closer, and I'm going to leave that card up here. And I think you can still see that. And we'll go through some of the pieces that we need. Now, I used just 2 colors. I used Pebble Path, which is a current in color that will be ending with the current annual catalog. So that means at the end of April, beginning of May, Pebbled Path is going to be a color that will go away. So if you like this color, you might want to order some of those things now. You know, your ink refill, cardstock. The nice thing about Stampin' Up! Stuff is that all of the colors, if you get markers, Stampin' Blends, designer series paper that has a certain color in it, cardstock, ink, they all coordinate, which is beautiful because then you don't have to worry about, oh, does this really match or not? All right. So let's get down to business. So yesterday when I did this card, I told you if you take an 8.5 by 11, and if you do your scoring first, if you score it at 4 1/4 and then scooch it over, score it at 7, and then turn it and cut it at 4 1/4, you'll get 2 card bases out of your piece of cardstock. All right. So if you're going to make 1 card, you may as well make 2 cards, and you may as well get your scores done right away. All right. So one of these we're going to fold underneath, and I'm going to get my bone folder and burnish that edge just so it's nice and sharp. And then you're going to fold the other one in the opposite direction, all right? And I'm going to burnish that as well. So there's our card base, all right? Simple, half a sheet of cardstock, all right? Then we are going to, that goes there, we are going to make our layers, all right? So we're going to have some layers on the left, layers in the middle, and layers on the right. And we'll get to that designer series paper in just a minute because I didn't cut that ahead of time because I want to show you what I'm doing. So these two pieces that'll go on the 4 1/4 scored side, you're going to do a 3 3/4 by 3 3/4 square and a 3 7/8 by 3 7/8 square of your coordinating cardstock. Now, this is a little different from what I did yesterday because I didn't put the second layer on there. But I thought with the grays, I needed something that had a little bit more of a colorful pop. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and glue these together and affix it to my card base. And I only put those numbers on there so you could see it. And if you're watching the replay, then you can kind of take notes or stop and rewind. All right. So when I put my pieces together, I try to line up one of the corners. And then I slide my finger down, kind of keeping everything aligned. But if I'm using glue, sometimes I have to shift it a little bit. And the glue gives you that wiggle room, all right? So then we're going to put some of this on here. And I'm not using a lot of glue. Like my granddaughter says, ... not a lot. And we're going to put that down there, kind of centered with an even border around all of the edges, as close as I can. And then these two pieces in the middle are 2 1/4 by 3 3/4. So it's the same height basically. And then 2 3/8 by 3 7/8. So let's affix these together and put them on our base. So when I see this one, I can see kind of how close it is to the top and probably get these lined up pretty close. And for whatever reason, having my papers at a diagonal helps me out. I don't know why. I don't know if it's something with my left-handedness and using my right brain. I just don't know, but that works better for me than going straight up and down. Even if I'm trying to follow my grid paper, I seem to do better just doing it sideways. So you can see I'm even tilting this a little sideways. And that's actually how I tilt my paper when I write. I wonder if that's why. Now the things we learn about ourselves when we contemplate things. And then this last set of layers, I'm going to go ahead and stamp on here first because I'm using the happy birthday on the inside and I'm going to do a couple of stars. Don't be me like last night when I forgot to stamp and I put a couple of my layers together first. So we're just going to stamp quick. I'm going to get my Pearson mat because when we use the photopolymer stamps, it helps get a good image for you. So I'm going to use this happy birthday and I'm going to put my ink to the stamp, not my stamp to the ink. When you put your stamp onto the ink, the tendency is squish, 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 and then you get a lot of ink in between and that can mess up your design. Now last night's card, the sentiment was in the middle and the words I put were in the middle. Well, this one I wanted up higher because I figure I might need a little bit more room to write just something down. So what I'm going to do on this one though is I'm going to move it a little to the left and it might look, well, it'll work. I'll do it the same as what my sample is. What you just have to watch out for is when you close this, that the happy doesn't show because you really don't want that to show. All right. So nice. And then I have my chamois that came with my glass mat and it came with my little silicone pad here too that you can put your ink spots and stuff in there. So that's really convenient. And then I'm going to take the Coastal Cabana and we're going to put a couple of stars on here. So whoop, drop that one. Let's clean that off. You never know, there could be some dust on my floor, you think? All right, let's try this again. So we're gonna put our ink to the stamp, and I'm gonna stamp, and then I'm gonna stamp off. And usually I put a piece of paper under there because I don't want to get my mat messy. But if you hold it not quite level, you'll be fine. And then I'm going to clean this off because I'm going to put a stamp in Pebbled Path, and I'm going to stamp this off. So let's get a scrap anyway, because I don't want it super dark. All right, so there's that. And this is where I would also just put a few stars on the front of my envelope, in whatever color you decide. I just decided to use the gray. I might add some of the Coastal Cabana ones. In fact, let's just do that now. That'll work. And do what I say, not what I do, because I just tap, tap, tap this on my ink. If you know you can control how hard you push things, go ahead and tap, tap, tap on your ink pad. But if you're a beginner stamper, I seriously recommend putting your ink onto your stamp. All right. So now this, if I can find my other layer, is ready to go inside. And I like having a little bit of glue on the inside of my piece, in addition to making sure that I cover the corners and usually the sides. All right. So put that on there. That's pretty close. And since this is a more masculine card, I know whoever I give it to, it's going to be a guy, and they're probably not going to be that impressed with a card that's handmade. They may not even keep it very long. So if I don't get things quite straight, I don't stress about it a whole lot, because unless they're a carpenter or an engineer or somebody who's got OCD, they're probably not really going to care. All righty, so that's that. Since we're stamping, let's go ahead and stamp the day. And I'm just going to show you what I did here. So let's just put my scraps back on here. And this just needs to be big enough for your sentiment. All right. So here is the day. And looks like I have some dust on there. Now, when you first get your stamps, especially when they're big like this, you may need to wash them really well, because they might have some of the oils or whatever from processing, you know, when they manufacture them. So keep that in mind, that, you know, it's a good idea with your new stamps to test them, basically. Ink them up, put them on some paper, and see how they look. All right. So the bigger your stamp, the harder it is to get them all inked up how you want them. And my ink pad probably needs to be refilled. And I'm going to leave that kind of distressed looking. Now, if I stamp this down on my piece of paper, this is kind of how it's going to turn out. For this one, what I did was I took a spritzer, and this one just has water in it. You can put water or alcohol in. And I just lightly spritzed on my stamp. All right, so you could, hopefully you heard, I just did 2 little spritzes, one on the left, one on the right. And then when I put this down, I'm going to kind of put it to the top of the paper, but so that I'll have a border. And I'm just going to let that sit for just a second. And then you can see how it's just a little bit more distressed. And I liked how that turned out. It was just one of those things where it's like, oh, I'll give this a try. All right, so we're done with that one. And then I'm going to end up trimming this down, but we can, once this gets dry enough, we're going to put What a Wonderful on top of there. And I'm going to do that with the Pebbled Path. You could also do it with like the Memento Black. And you can see I still got some in between here because I'm probably tapping a little too hard. But if you don't over press it on here, it should be fine. So I'm going to just put that right in the middle. And I'm not pushing hard, I'm just giving it some steady pressure. And I usually let my stamp pad, or my stamp rather, stay on for just a few seconds so that it can absorb the ink. All right, so we're done with that one. And then I'm going to get my trimmer, because we're going to want to trim this down a little bit. And I'll get rid of these things. So what we'll do here, now normally the trimmer I have kind of straight up and down. So what I do when I trim this down is I will get my letters so that they're just to the edge of where the hole is here, because there's a slot. All right, and I've heard that if you put an envelope through here, I haven't tested it because I have a separate device, but if you put an envelope through here, if it fits through here, it'll make it through the post office with regular postage, if it's not too heavy. All right, sometimes if they're too thick, they have to hand process them. So just a little tip there. But anyway, let's go back to this. So I'm going to push this so that the letters are not in the track, but rather so that they're just on the edge. All right. And you want the dark blade. The dark blade is the cutter. The light blade is the scoring tool. When I got mine, they were switched, but there's a little slot here where you can take these out just by lifting them. All right. And you can switch them. And I just like mine with the scoring one on top, because that's what our old trimmer did. It had that on the top. But then those store nice out of the way. So let's trim a little bit off of there. And a little bit off of there. All right. So I don't know which one you like better, but I'm going to do it again with this distressed one. And we won't let that go too far because we're going to need that for the next step. All right. So the next thing we're going to work on here is the little banner. All right. So I've got a Coastal Cabana accent banner under here. Let's go like this. Maybe that'll work. All right. So let's say you had, and this is just an inch there, an inch from here to here. And you need a couple of inches for sure. So let's say you didn't, this is all the scrap you had. Maybe you traveled and you didn't have stuff with you. What you're going to do is make your flagged ends. And I showed this the other night, but if you snip up like a 1/4 inch or however deep you want your flag to be, and then go from corner to snip and corner to snip. Oh, I guess I didn't get it quite to the snip. All right. And then if you do the other side the same way, some of you might have already figured out what I'm going to do, because we've done this with punches before. If you have a piece that's not quite big enough, get rid of my debris. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this so that I can spread it out under my banner. I'm going to make this side shorter and this side longer because it's going to have to overhang here. All right. So this can go here and this can go here. However, it's going to fit on my page. All right. So the one thing that's going to make it different is that I have this up on a dimensionals. So the banner is flat, where this one would basically have to be attached to your sentiment. All right. So that it's the right length. All right. So what we can do is just put a little bit of glue on this edge. Go. And this glue is very strong, so you shouldn't have any trouble getting it to stick. And what you can do to help you line things up is use your grid paper or your glass mat. Glass mat is $60, so if you want a free item, a single purchase with a glass mat will work too. Otherwise, I can kind of go through some of the supplies I'm using too and show you what combination would equal about $60. So we can just go to about the same distance here. So we'll just put glue on most of that. And then we'll just put this whole banner piece. And I guess I could have, since I'm not gonna put the banner part flat on here, I could have just cut this in half. It didn't have to be offset. I guess I was making it more difficult than it needed to be. So when we put our dimensionals on the back of this piece though, we want to make sure we only put dimensionals on this part. We don't want it on this part because we don't want it to stick to our card. And I have used up most of my dimensionals here, but there's always the edges. All right, and I'm just going to leave that be for right now. So that's ready to go on our card. So let's go to the designer series paper now. All right, get a couple of these other things out of the way. So with the designer series paper then, I want my grain to go lengthwise basically. All right, so we need to do a piece that is 3.5 by 3.5. So our first piece, you can see from here to here is 3.5, and we know it's a square piece. All right, so let's first do our 3.5 lengthwise. So I'm going to go to 3.5 and I'm going to slice it. This piece I'm going to glue on for my envelope flap. All right, it's a perfect fit. I usually do these 2.5 by 6. I will put glue on my flap. All right, making sure I get as close to the edges as I can without going over. Then I will glue this on, and then I will flip it like this, and I will fussy cut. So then you just fussy cut around the edges to end up with that. All right, so I'm going to hang on to this for the card that we're making today. All right. So we'll hang on to that. So now from here, I need to get this at 3.5, right? Because we went 3.5 by 3.5. So that piece is going to go there. And then this piece, I want to just use the next section so that the design flows. All right. And that piece is going to be, where'd my ruler go? I think it's 2 inches. Yep, so that's going to be 2 inches wide. So we're just going to slide this over to 2 inches and slice that off. So basically, this is scrap, and the part that we cut around of the envelope, that's all we didn't use on that 6.5 or 6 by 6 designer series paper. All right, so this is actually a very frugal use of your designer series paper. All right, so the other thing that we did yesterday, and I can get this out of the way now. The other thing we did yesterday, and that's what I forgot to stamp before I glued things together, was stamping right on our designer series paper. All right, so let's do that. And I did mine with both colors. So I did some of the pebbled path on the front, and these I pressed a little bit harder to get in the texture. And I just kind of turn the stamp a little bit. All right, so that's that. This one is really light, but it kind of adds to the distressed appearance. And we're just gonna leave well enough alone because I don't remember how I had it lined up. There. Whew. That was like a puzzle. So let's see how this turns out. Good enough. So it adds to the distressed look. So we're done with that one. And then let's do a couple of Coastal Cabana pieces, or a couple of Coastal Cabana stars on this piece. And I'm just turning, usually I'll turn my paper, sometimes I'll turn my stamp. to make the design more random. All right, so that one is still looking distressed, which is fine. All right, so these will go here and here. So let's get some glue again. And the liquid glue is really good when you're using an embossed piece of designer series paper, because it's going to get into some of those, the texture, the nooks and crannies, and it will help it stick good. All right. So there we go. I don't know if you saw that shift a little bit, but that, like I said, is one of the benefits of having the all-purpose liquid glue, is because it does give you some wiggle room. So that's that. And then let's close this. Whew, the Y on the happy made it. So let's take these backings off our dimensional scraps. And we're just going to make sure we line that up so the birthday gets covered. And I want to shift that a little bit so that my flag is about the same distance on each side. And that's close enough. All right. So that's our card. What do you think? I am not going to put any other kind of bling on here because I figure it's going to a guy. And I've got the stars on there. So there's that. So 2 cards, 1 piece of cardstock, 1 each 6x6 designer series paper, and then your other little pieces. You know, you would basically have a sheet of your white, your basic white, and a sheet of that Coastal Cabana so that you can get your layers done. So the only other thing I will do is add my little Angel Policy stamp to the back. And there we go. 2 cards for the worker 1, basically. So let me know what you think. And if you have made one of these layouts, add it to the comments. I love to see what other people are doing too, because, you know, it gives me ideas for cards and it lets me see what you like and what your take was. Was there something I did that was just really crummy? Or, hey, that was a really good idea and it worked. So let's do some more of that. But that's what I've got for you tonight. And isn't that cute? Even for a guy, it's a nice looking card. So happy stamping, everybody, and I will see you next time.